Thank you very much, Kathy, and welcome to your business at Prime. Well, Africa's largest asset manager by assets increased its assets by 439 billion rands to 2.33 trillion rands in the past year, and also paid 5.8 billion rands to employers and employees due to the COVID-19 pandemic through the temporary employer-employee relief scheme. I caught up with the PIC CEO Abel Sithole and asked just how they managed to pull off such a performance in what has been a difficult trading period with COVID-19.
I would like to take credit for that significant improvement in our assets of 439 billion, but I think it is fair to say that that is largely due to the market recovery. Remember, when COVID-19 was declared as a pandemic, and then we also had a downgrade to sub-investment grade, we saw a significant depreciation in investment values by almost 30%, which is almost equivalent to the recovery that we've seen of 439 billion. So I'd like to take credit for it, but I think it's, in all fairness, it was because we had a significant recovery in markets.
Let's talk about unlisted investments. How have they performed in the past 12 months?
The good news is we've had positive performance. We had a return of about 2.78% in terms of IRR. The not so good news is that, of course, our hurdle rate, the minimum that we're expecting from unlisted investments, is about 8%. And of course, in this environment, you're looking at a much higher return to justify the risk that you're taking. So the good news is that I think the positive return is welcome, but we're still kind of falling short of our clients' expectations.
267,000 employers and 5.8 million employees in the sectors in which you are invested. Tell us about that decision to actually, get involved to help the employers and employees in the sectors you are invested.
No, I think that's probably one of the stories that is not told, and I think it's important to appreciate that the PIC, as we say, invests on behalf of the most vulnerable at the most vulnerable time, and this, I think, is a good indicator of that. Following the response of our government, and of course it's been universal, to the challenges of COVID-19, the impact that it has had on our people, especially workers and employers who employ them, there had to be a response. And the government, of course, then implemented the temporary relief schemes, which both employers and employees have taken advantage of. And the good news is that when there was a call for that assistance, the PIC, on behalf of its client, the UIF, was able to actually come and support that to the value of the 58 billion rand that you've indicated, and over 5.4 million workers that have benefited from it. And again, it simply reinforces the importance of this institution in the lives of South Africans.
Let's talk about the July unrest. As a shareholder in some of these businesses and listed on the JSE, and also owning the motor, the buildings themselves, that some of them were actually damaged. It seems like you were hit with a double whammy as the PIC. Let's talk about that impact and what it did to your performance, and when do you see the recovery in terms of the sectors in which you are invested?
The impact of the unrest will actually manifest itself in terms of reporting in the new financial year. But we can, of course, speak about the impact currently, because we've had it. You're right. I think some of our property investments, we invest in shopping centers, and some of them were impacted. The one that was seriously adversely impacted is our mall in Tembisa, which was set on fire, and by and large we have to probably reconstruct a significant portion of that. The biggest impact was on our investee companies, who were also subjected to the challenges that arose through the unrest. The good news is that the impact we felt temporarily, and currently we're seeing a recovery, and we're providing support where support is being requested and is justified.
Let's talk about staff morale and how exactly staff morale is at the moment. You did receive, I wouldn't say complaints from, the staff, but concerns with regards to their morale and what they see as concerns and needing intervention. What are you doing about what the staff has actually raised earlier on in a letter that was written to you?
We of course, through the appropriate committees and the board, and of course, as management, we engage with the staff on issues that they raise. But of course, not all matters that they raise necessarily indicate that there are problems in management or in the organization. I think maybe we still have challenges around trust in terms of following the processes and procedures that are available to the organization for people to raise whatever concern they might have. And I think that letter, by and large, dealt with matters that could easily be dealt with within the organization. But in the kind of environment where we still have a trust deficit, people always want to, in a sense, buy insurance by writing to letters anonymously and outside of the public domain. But I think the response is that we engage with our employees specifically on this method and broadly improving the management environment across the board.
The board chairman was quoted as saying he's quite concerned about the Public Investment Corporation Act, which was signed into law in February this year, when it comes to the deputy minister, now making it law that the deputy minister or any deputy minister in this economic cluster becomes the chairman of the PIC. You've said that this is not a concern at all. The fact that now we have a law that actually stipulates that the chairman should come from the cabinet or the security or the economic cluster in the deputy ministers, in one of those deputy ministers, does not mean that the board is politicized. You see it differently in that the involvement of clients and unions strengthens the board of the PIC.
No, I think it does. I think, number one, we must accept that the law is the law. So my opinion doesn't really matter. The law is what it is, and we need to comply with the law. So that I think is the important part. But in terms, I think the second part is to say that the amended act is definitely a departure from the recommendations of the Mpati Commission report, which envisaged a different kind of board structure, much more commercial. But be that as it may, the law is what the law is. But the current board actually, I think, to me, is a good balance between all the stakeholders. First, the shareholder of the PIC being government. Second, being clients. And third, being labor, unions. Now, to me, those are going to serve whatever constituencies they serve, but they have to actually work together to serve the best interest of the PIC and its clients. And they're not likely to allow one constituency to, in a sense, drive their agenda at the expense of other constituencies. So I think we will have a strong board.
Would you say that since you took that position as the CEO, you have felt any political, pressure of any sort? Because we know part of the reason why we ended up with the Mpati Commission of Inquiry is because of allegations of politicization of the PIC and its investment decisions.
None whatsoever. I have not experienced any political pressure.